Hey guys, my name is Lilly and today I'm filming here from my greenhouse, and today I want to show you an article which is really making my blood boil. So the newspaper, The Telegraph, has brought out an article about how homegrown food has a higher carbon footprint than conventionally grown food. Here they are stating carbon footprint of homegrown food 5 times greater than those grown conventionally. Now, when I read this title, I thought, are they really serious about this? So here they are stating the study found individual garden infrastructure responsible for increased levels of CO2. Come on, really? Is this a joke or something? So I'm not really sure how they really conducted the study and how they got these outrageous figures and how they calculated that we home gardeners cause like 5 times more CO2. But everybody who knows how to think and who has a little bit of a common sense knows that this is just real bullshit. And when I'm reading through the article, they make one outrageous statement after the other. Here they say poorly managed composts and other synthetic inputs can also be important contributors. Huh? Compost? Compost is CO2 neutral. Okay? It's CO2 neutral. Plants are CO2 neutral. And it's pretty clear that compost is releasing CO2 and also methane, but no more than the plant has taken up before. So I went to forestry school, for example, and in forestry school we learned about trees and forests and ecosystems. And one thing that we learned is that trees and plants are CO2 neutral. So that means if a tree grows, for example, or if a grass grows, they take up CO2 and they use the CO2 for photosynthesis, so they can produce ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is a sugar. And this sugar is important so the tree can grow. And then it releases O2, which is oxygen. So all of the CO2 that gets uptaken by the tree and stored inside of the tree is carbon neutral. So if you cut down the tree and burn it, then it releases the CO2 again, of course, but it's not contributing to any climate crisis because it's CO2 neutral. And the same goes for plants and for compost. So no matter how you're treating your compost pile, it will always release the same amount of CO2 as the plant has uptaken before. So in fact, you cannot really consider a compost pile in the study here because it's wrong, because it's CO2 neutral per se. So of course, if you include this in the study, then you will get figures like this, but it's just wrong to include those figures. Synthetic fertilizer is something different because it's made from crude oils. So yes, that's contributing to CO2, but compost, which comes from plants, is not contributing because it's CO2 neutral. Then they also state that from raised beds to garden sheds to pathways, these constructions had a lot of carbon invested in their construction. Okay, so they say that garden sheds, they are increasing the CO2 of my veggie garden. Actually, that's not correct in my case. So this garden shed has existed before I started gardening. It has existed because there's a lawn around the house and you need a garden shed for the lawnmower and other tools. So this garden shed was not erected for the purpose of my veggie garden. This garden shed was already here, and so it is with many other homeowners who do not have a veggie garden. So I don't think it's fair to consider the CO2 carbon content of a garden shed for my veggie garden. Because for my veggie garden, I actually do not need a garden shed. The garden shed is really just for the lawnmower. For the veggie garden, I just need a few shovels and a few pots I can also store this inside of the greenhouse or inside of my basement. So a garden shed is not required for a veggie garden. Okay, so now let's talk about raised beds. Now it really depends what material you build your raised bed from. I was using wood, and again, wood is CO2 neutral. My raised beds, they are going to hold their structure for at least 20 years. So for 20 years, I've taken out wood out of the forest, out of a dedicated forest area. So basically what I'm doing here is CO2 sequestering. So now I have all of this wood here, which is probably a medium-sized tree. And in the meantime, another tree is growing in the forest. So that means that now we have a tree in the forest and I have the wood here. And that means that, hey, I've stored one medium-sized tree here in my garden. The same thing goes for wooden furniture and wooden houses. So let's say you're building a wooden cabin out of wood, lumber. That means that you're taking out CO2 out of the atmosphere and you're storing it. So if they tax us for carbon, for diesel and gas, then I should get money for storing wood in my garden, because this is also taking out CO2 out of the atmosphere. And this is something they certainly have not considered in the study. Also, before I have built these raised beds and before I have filled the raised beds with some carbon storing soil, there was nothing here. It was just dirt and then there was gravel. So there was nothing here and not a lot of carbon stored on this area. But now, because I have wooden raised beds, because I have very fertile soil with a high carbon content, I'm storing a lot of CO2. So if somebody would believe this article, and unfortunately I think that a lot of people believe this bullshit, what's the consequence? If I remove all of my raised beds and make gravel again, is this going to benefit nature? The birds that are coming here, the bees that are nesting, all of the insects that I have in here? So ecology is quite complicated. And now with these articles, people are going to believe that home gardening is bad. And that's a real tragedy. So yeah, they're saying the most significant contributor to carbon emissions on the urban agriculture sites was the infrastructure. Raised beds, garden sheds, pathways. Pathways? Huh? You can take a simple stone from the river and make a pathway. So, what's this about? Some people, they just have wood chips for pathways. Or some people have nothing, or just lawn. Then also they say fruit was found to be 8.6 times more eco-friendly when grown conventionally. Huh? Okay, so here I have a couple of blueberries, which give me fruit. Here I have red currant plant, shrub. It's giving me fruit. Here I have a couple of raspberries, which is giving me fruit. All of these plants have one thing in common. They are CO2 neutral. So I planted this here. The raspberries actually do not need a lot of compost. So they grow on really poor soil. And I just come here and pick the fruit and eat it. But if I buy it in the store, it goes through a whole chain of logistics, using trucks and tractors and workers, creating a multi-million-dollar business. And this is the reason why they don't want you to grow food. Because now, with the crisis, more and more people, they want to grow their own food, and it's really hurting a multi-million-dollar business. And like with everything else, all of this is just about the money. Okay, they don't want to lose money because people start to grow their own food. So there's a lot of money to be made in this business. And with the vegetable prices going up through the roof, it really now pays off to grow your own food. Now, a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, I've done a calculation on this garden here. I'm saving each year 1,500 euros on my own organic fruits and vegetables. Okay? This is what I'm profiting every year from doing this myself. But now with the increased food prices, I'm saving about 2,000 euros each year. So you can grow a lot of food, expensive food, save a lot of money in just a small garden like this. I'm not sure how many square feet of raised beds I have. I have to calculate that. But you can make a lot of money, especially with tomatoes. Okay, I want to do a quick calculation on how much I'm actually saving on growing tomatoes. So right now, tomatoes cost 5.98 euros per kilogram, and that's for organic tomatoes here in Europe. Okay, and I'm growing organic tomatoes, so I also compare my produce to organic tomatoes in the store. Okay, so I'm growing tomatoes. One plant is averaging a yield of 7.5 kilograms. I have this year calculated that I will grow 22 tomato plants. So I will grow in total 165 kilograms of organic tomatoes times 5.98 euros. So I will save about 1,000 euro on tomatoes alone. And that's really awesome. So that's just the tomatoes. Then I still grow strawberries, a whole lot of strawberries. I grow other crops too. So I will be well over 1,400, maybe even 2,000 euros that I'm saving with my veggie garden. And this is the exact reason why they want you to not grow your own crops. They rather want you to purchase some crops from some big corporations so they don't lose out on money. So this is what it's all about, guys. And if you want to save money, grow your own food. Even if you don't have a lot of space, you can always grow like a tomato plant on the balcony. You can always, search for areas outside of your home. Maybe you find some pathway in the wilderness where there's a nice spot where you could grow crops without anybody knowing. So it's always wise to do that, especially at your bug out location. You can take some Jerusalem artichokes and put them in the ground somewhere where nobody knows about it. You can take tiger nut, put them in the ground, try to grow them to make sure that you have something in case there's a huge food crisis. And I'm 100% sure there will be a food crisis, and actually we are already in it. And there really seems to be an attack on the food system, on the supply system. Maybe it has to do with the fact that they want us to eat insects and lab-grown meat. And the agenda right now is that they hate self-sufficient people and they don't want to lose profits because people are now starting to grow their own food on a big scale. Okay guys, so this is it for today. At the end of the video, I would like to show you my suburban garden. I think it's awesome and I can only encourage everybody to grow their own food. Okay, so this is the inside of my greenhouse. Really nice. I already have prepared everything for the new growing season. Pretty soon I'm going to start growing tomatoes. And yes, of course, the greenhouse is made from plastic. So it's crude oil, and of course it's adding a little bit of CO2 emissions to my garden here. But I have so much soil in those raised beds and so many boards that I'm storing more CO2 than I've spent CO2 on this greenhouse. Okay, so this is the greenhouse and I really love it. Good, and here we have a bee hotel. So on my property I have a lot of bees nesting and I'm supporting wild bees. This raised bed is dedicated for potatoes in the next year. Here I have some time. I have many more raised beds, and also I've got some herbs here at this side, more strawberries. Then here at the back side I got some raspberries. I also do have some insect houses. Look at this, a ton of insects in here. Yeah, and then I got a direct composting system. This is a steel bin, and I put my kitchen scraps into those bins, and underneath there are some holes in it, so the earthworms, they are distributing the carbon and CO2 inside of the soil, and there it's getting stored. So this is a really highly efficient composting system which I can recommend to everybody. And it doesn't take a lot of work, so you don't need to turn it. And yeah, that's awesome. Very efficient system, and a lot of the carbon is getting stored inside of the soil instead of going into the air. Okay, next, here one more raised bed, and then here you can see my blueberries, which I really love. Blueberries are very expensive, and we are producing a ton of blueberries here. And then here, this is my newest addition to the garden. I have built another big raised bed. In the front there's some strawberries growing, and in the back side I will have a row of tomatoes this year. So yeah, this is my garden. You can see most of it is made from wood and is therefore storing carbon. So yeah, I'm really happy with this garden. I'm doing something good for the economy, for my personal economy, but also for the food supply chain, because I'm not dependent so much. And also insects love it here, birds love it here, bees love it here, rainworms, I have earthworms, composting worms. Here there's a birdhouse. Okay guys, so yeah, this is it for the day. Sorry for my rant, but I really had to say something. When I see such a stupid article, I cannot shut my mouth. It really enrages me. So yeah, this is it guys. I really want to thank you for watching, and stay tuned till next time.